This is solving linear equations. Number 1, x minus 8 is negative 3. We want to undo the subtraction of 8 from x. We undo subtraction by addition. Specifically, addition of the value 8. So we can get x equals 8 minus 3. 8 minus 3 is 5. Number 3, we have 3x is negative 12. We want to undo the multiplication by 3 to our variable x. We undo multiplication by division. We get x is negative 12 divided by 3, or x is negative 4. We are done. Number 5, negative 2x is negative 20. We're going to have to undo the multiplication to x by negative 2. We're going to have the negative 2's cancel. X is going to be negative 20 divided by negative 2. A negative divided by negative is a positive. X is the value 10. Number 7, x plus 12 is 8. We're going to have to undo the addition of 12 to x by subtracting 12 from both sides. We get x is 8 minus 12, which is negative 4. Number 9, we have 3x minus 4 is negative 10. What's happening to our x is we are being multiplied by 3 and subtracted by 4. Two operations to undo. You always undo addition or subtraction first. In this case, it's subtraction. We're going to add 4 to both sides to undo the subtraction of 4 to x. We end up with 3x equals negative 10 plus 4, which is negative 6. We're going to divide now both sides by 3, and we end up getting x equal to negative 2. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. Number 11, negative 4x plus 7 looks like negative 4x plus 7, that's correct, will be 12. We're going to undo our addition operation before our multiplication operation. We undo addition by subtracting. We subtract 7 from both sides to undo the addition of 7. We end up with negative 4x is 12 minus 7, which is 5. We're going to divide both sides now by negative 4. Cancellation gives us a x, and I get a positive divided by a negative, which is a negative fraction. Now remember, every fraction given as an answer must be simplified. 5 is prime. We can't break 5 down. But 4 is not prime. We can write 4 as 2 times 2. Notice here that there is no cancellation, meaning the 5 does not cancel with the 2 that's on the bottom, the 5 on top with the 2 on bottom. So this means we are done. This answer is simplified. Number 13, 4x plus 17 is 1. We're going to subtract 17 from both sides we end up with 4x equals 1 minus 17 is negative 16. We're going to undo this multiplication of x with the number 4 by dividing both sides by 4, so we get cancellation. We get x equals a negative divided by a positive, which is a negative. And we're done. Number 15. X over 5 minus 1 is 4. We're going to have to undo two operations: division with 5 and subtraction with 1. We always undo addition or subtraction first. In this case, we undo the subtraction by adding 1 to both sides. We end up with x over 5 is 4 plus 1, which is 5. We're going to undo the division with x by 5 by multiplying both sides by the number doing the dividing, in this case 5. We end up with x equals 5 times 5, which is 25. Number 17. We get 2/3 x plus 5 is negative 1. We're going to undo our addition of 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides. We end up with 2/3 x equals negative 1 minus 5, which is negative 6. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the fraction 2/3. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. The reason I multiply by the reciprocal is so I cancel 3 and 3 and 2 and 2. I get cancellation. I get x equals negative 6 over 1 times 3 over 2. We have a negative times a positive, which gives me a negative. This is 6 times 3 over 1 times 2. Now I can do a couple of things here. I can notice that by multiplying 6 and 3, I get 18. 1 and 2, I get 2. And I can simply divide. This is negative, so I need my negative sign, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. And we're done. $19. 5x minus 4 is 12. We're going to undo our subtraction of 4 by adding 4 to both sides. We end up with 5x equals 16. I'm now going to divide both sides by 5. We're going to end up with x equals 16 over 5. Every answer that's a fraction must be reduced. 16 is written as 4 2s over 5. We're done. The 2 does not cancel with the 5. None of these 2's. Number 21. Negative 2x plus 5 equals negative 5. We're going to undo our addition of 5 by subtracting 5. We end up with negative 2x equals negative 10. Divide both sides by negative 2. And we get x equal to a negative divided by a negative, which is a positive. X is 5. Number 23. Negative 4x plus 7 equals negative 11. We're going to undo the addition of 7 by subtracting 7. So I get negative 4x equals negative 18. We divide both sides by the number doing the multiplying to x by negative 4. We end up with x equal to a negative over a negative, which is a positive. We're now going to have to break down our numbers, factor trees for 18. 18 can be written as, in terms of its prime factorization, as 3 times 3 times 2. 4 can be written as 2 times 2. I have cancellation. I'm going to end up with x equal to 9 halves. And we're done. Number 25, we get 3x minus 4 is x minus 6. We have x on opposite sides. We need the x's on the same side. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I end up with a 2x minus 4 is negative 6. I'm going to now undo my subtraction of 4 by adding 4 to both sides. We end up with 2x equals negative 2. We're going to divide both sides by positive 2. We end up with x equal to negative 2 divided by positive 2 is negative 1. This is number 25. (27). We have 2x minus 7 is x plus 5. We have x's on opposite sides again, so we need them on the same side. We're going to subtract x from both sides. Get x minus 7 is 5. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. I now get x equals 12. We undo our subtraction of 7 by adding 7 to both sides. Number 29. 4 times x minus 1 plus 2 is negative 20. We're going to need to use our distributive property to get rid of our parentheses. So negative 4 times x is, or I should say 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4, plus 2 is negative 20. We are going to combine like terms. Negative 4 plus 2. These terms are like. We have 4x minus 2 is negative 20. We now have to undo subtraction of negative 2 by adding 2 to both sides. I end up with 4x equals negative 20 plus 2 is negative 18. We're going to divide both sides by 4 to undo that multiplication to x by 4. And we get x equals negative 18 over 4. Every fraction we give as an answer must be reduced. 18 is broken down as 3 times 3 times 2, 4 as 2 times 2. In terms of their prime factors, a 2 cancels, and we're left with 9 halves. This answer is simplified. Number 31. 2 times x minus 5 is 3 times x plus 4. We're going to use the distributive property here to get rid of our parentheses. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 4 is 12. We need our x's on the same side. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. We end up with negative x minus 10 is positive 12. We're going to add 10 to both sides. We get negative x is positive 22. Let's not forget what negative x actually is. It's negative 1 times x. So I divide both sides by negative 1 to get cancellation. I end up with x equals a positive divided by a negative, which is negative. Number 33. Negative x plus 2 minus 5 is 0. We're going to have to get rid of, again, our parentheses by the distributive property. Don't forget you're looking at negative 1 times x, which gives you negative x minus 2. Don't forget we had a negative 5 there already. We're now going to have to combine our like terms. Negative 2 minus 5. Negative 2 minus 5 gives me negative 7. I can now add 7 to both sides. And I'm going to end up with negative x is 7. Now, negative x is really negative 1 times x. So we can divide both sides by negative 1. We're going to end up with x equals a positive divided by a negative, which is negative. Number 35. We have 6x minus 4x plus 5 is negative 3. We're going to combine like terms. 6x minus 4x is 2x plus 5, which is equal to negative 3. We're now going to subtract 5 from both sides to obtain 2x equals negative 8. We're going to divide both sides by positive 2. We end up with x equal to negative 8 divided by positive 2, which is a negative 4. And we're done. Number 37. 37 is 4 minus x equals 12. Now, I have 4 with my x, and the operation between them is negative, or subtraction. But the sign in front of my 4 is positive, meaning there is no sign. By default, it's positive. So to remove that, to get x by itself, I'm going to need to subtract 4 from both sides. You end up with negative x is 12 minus 4, which is 8. Negative x is really negative 1 times x. We're going to divide both sides by your negative 1, and you get cancellation. We end up with x being a positive divided by a negative, which is negative 8. Number 39. 4 minus 2x is 8. Again, we have to get x by itself, so we're going to subtract 4 from both sides to remove the 4. you have negative 2x is 8 minus 4, which is 4. We're going to divide both sides by negative 2. The negative 2's cancel, and we get x equals positive over a negative is negative. That's number 39. (41) negative 2 plus x is 8. I should say it's negative 8. To get x by itself, I have a negative 2 added to it. I'm going to add 2 to both sides so that that negative 2 goes away. You're left with x equals negative 8 plus 2, which is negative 6. (43) 5 plus 3x is 7. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides to get my x by itself, or I should say the 3x. We have 3x is 7 minus 5, which is 2. Divide both sides by 3 to get your cancellation, and you now get x equals 2/3. (45) 2x minus 1/5 is 2/5. We're going to add 1/5 to both sides to undo the subtraction of 1/5. We have 2x equals 2/5 plus 1/5 gives us 3/5. These fractions are like. They have the same denominator. We just simply add the numerators and keep the denominator. We now have to undo the multiplication by 2 with this x so that we cancel. We end up with x equals 3/5 divided by 2, or x is 3/5 times the reciprocal of 2, which is 1/2. Now, when I multiply fractions, I multiply diagonally across. Horizontally across. That means left to right. I get x equals 3 over 5 times 2. Notice that the 3, the 5, and the 2 are prime, and they do not cancel. That means x is going to be 3/10. And you're done. Number 47. X over negative 2 minus 1 is 1/5. To undo the subtraction of 1, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. We end up with x over negative 2 is 1 plus 1/5. On the right side of our equation, we have some work to do. We're going to have to add 1 with 1/5. Let's do some work on the right. 1 plus 1/5, we write 1 over 1 plus 1/5. These are unlike fractions. They have different denominators. So we need the LCM of 1 and 5, which is 5. 1 times some number gives me the 5. LCM, it has to be a 5. So I put a 5 on the bottom and on top. 5 times 1 gives me 5. So in my square, I have 5s. Square I have 1s. Triangle I have 5s. So 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 1 is 1. These are now like. I can now keep my denominator of 5, and I add my numerators. And 5 plus 1 is 6. This here is on the right side of my equation. This fraction here is on the right. So what I'm going to have now is x over negative 2 is 6/5. So x over negative 2 is 6/5. In order to solve for x, to get x by itself, I have to multiply both sides by a negative 2. I get cancellation. I now have x equals negative 12 over 5. I'm going to put the negative sign at the same level. Notice the 12 can't be broken down. I'm sorry, it can be. 12 is written as 2 times 2 times 3. The 5 can't be broken down because it's prime. So the 5 can't be broken down, your 12 can be. I got 2 times 2 times 3, which is 12. Notice, even though this fraction is negative, nothing cancels on top. The 2's, the 3's, and the 5 don't cancel. What this means is we're done. Your answer is negative 12/5 for x. Number 49. 49, we have x over 6 equals 2/3. This is known as a proportion. So there's a few things we can do. Probably the easiest thing to do is notice that with my x, 6 is being divided into this x. So I undo this division by multiplication by the number doing the dividing. I end up with x equals to 2/3 times our 6. If we're awake, we're going to notice that 2/3 times 6 is really 12/3. And that 12 divided by 3 is 4. And you're done. Number 51. We get 5 over x is 1/3. Here, we're going to cross multiply. And what I mean by that is we're going to multiply diagonally across. And this is what we're going to do. In orange, on top I have 5. I'm going to multiply that by 3. So I really have symbolically 5 times 3. That's going to equal x times 1. Now 5 times 3 is 15, and x times 1 is x because anything times 1 is itself. This statement that 15 here is x is the same statement as saying x is 15. It doesn't matter how you read it. Either way would be okay. 15 is x or x is 15. We have actually solved this proportion. Equal ratios.